good to have you all here. Yeah, it's just incredible to see so many of you here tonight. Familiar faces, new faces, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everyone tuning in via live stream. It's just been incredible just seeing the demand for this event. But I think it just points to the fact that we need to come together and talk about these issues because we're all going through it, as we've heard today. And some of these stories, it's like, I know you, but I didn't know you. And I'm like, wow. And there's just so much of myself that I could see and hear in what you have shared. And so that's why it's so important for us to have spaces like this where we can discuss these experiences, because you just never know what the person next to you is going through. And so yeah, I'm really grateful that you've given me your Tuesday evening to talk about these issues. And I have to be honest, you might have seen me typing away at my laptop. I definitely wrote my speech very last minute. It's just been a crazy time because there's just so much that can be said about this topic, as we've heard here today. And I just found myself writing, deleting, writing and deleting. But I don't know, for me, I just think, yeah, if you're one of those people like me, a bit dramatic, where any small inconvenience, you just say to yourself, I can't wait to write my memoir. That's the energy that I've been bringing to my speech. So I'm going to give you the Spark Notes version of my story. You're just going to have to stay tuned for the details in my memoir. And I'm not even joking. You lot better buy my book. Anyway, so as I mentioned, hi, I'm Nikki. I'm the founder of Bounce Black. And it's a platform that started out as a passion project born from lived experience, and it's now grown into an early stage startup, social enterprise designed to serve the workplace and well-being needs of Black professionals. And thank you so much. Thank you. So I'm only 3 years in, but I'd love to tell you the story behind Bounce Black, as well as the story since Bounce Black, but more importantly, the story beyond Bounce Black. And so for context, I'm 28 years old. I grew up in Southeast London, and I won't go into detail. You have to read my memoir for that. But if you know, you know. How many South Londoners do we have in here today? Come on, yeah. Sorry, I have to. It's a personality trait. But yeah, so as I look back on my journey of having experienced anxiety and depression, since before I could name them, I think of all of the points at which intervention could have made a difference. And I think of, for example, the tearful and sleepless nights, which perhaps some of us here had before school. I definitely did. And I think of the ways that then manifested in me not being engaged in class. And then I think of the teachers who would tell me things like, I would never make it past year 9 as a result. And I think of the challenging circumstances that my mates and I experienced, which made us grow up quicker than we should have. And then I also think of the 2 hard working parents that I was raised by, who tried their utmost and their best, but they themselves didn't have the language or the tools to cope with their own stress because they weren't equipped or supported by the culture, communities, or systems they were surrounded by. I think of when I told my 6th form career officer that depression was affecting my ability to study. But because I lacked a formal diagnosis, I wasn't allowed to declare it on my UCAS form. And instead of receiving guidance for getting diagnosis or any follow-up on my well-being, I carried this baggage with me instead all the way to university in Manchester, where my peers were free to explore ideas. They were free to make connections for the future and have their identities shaped by an academic experience that they enjoyed more than they endured. And by the time I got my depression diagnosis in my 2nd year of my undergraduate degree, I had become a shadow of my former self. And I think such is the experience of many children and young people who find their potential stifled by a combination of personal, social, cultural, and systemic factors. And for Black people in particular, the racial disparities in mental health are heartbreaking. As we've heard today, some examples, we also know that we continue as a community to be underserved by prevention services, but somehow overrepresented in crisis care. And some of us just struggle on our own because, as we've heard from Mutinraya's story, not all GPs are trained in understanding and identifying trauma. That was certainly my case. And eventually I had to take time off my studies because I could no longer function. And I experienced a nervous breakdown, which almost felt like a stroke in the severity of how it impacted me. And all that to say that when young people do not get the help they need when they need it, symptoms worsen over time. And we know that when it comes to mental health, early intervention matters for the chances of recovery to be improved. I'm really thankful that I had intervention in the form of my Christian faith, my supportive friends and family, kind strangers, university tutors, and wellbeing staff, as well as therapists, and books like The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. And so for me, launching Bounce Black was the culmination of this recovery journey that need not have been as long and as hard as it was. If I knew what I know now much sooner, I believe my story and trajectory would have been different. I like to say that I knew there was a gap in the market because I fell through it. So I've been doing what I can to be who I needed and share the information and resources I've found helpful. Because trauma is like an elastic band. There's only so long it can go undetected and untreated before it starts to claw you back and interfere with your ability to lead a full and meaningful life. Yet I stand here before you all today as a testament to the fact that you can still live a meaningful life on the other side of adversity. By the grace of God, I am also a testament to the possibility of living limitlessly in the middle of adversity. When I launched Bounce Black on September 10th, 2020, it was World Suicide Prevention Day. And so today's relaunch on October 10th, World Mental Health Day, I believe signifies the shift that I have experienced personally from surviving to thriving. And I'm very, very grateful for that. But being a public advocate for racial equity in the workplace has not come without cost. It cost me a job I worked hard to get and once thoroughly enjoyed until I was forced to quit when it became apparent that my former boss was determined to clip my wings and hold me back. It cost me legal career progression as I stood up to a very senior, middle-aged, middle-class white woman who felt she had the right to bully me without impunity. It cost me my confidence as she chipped away at my self-esteem over time through relentless criticism and fault-finding, telling me I was still not good enough and comparing me to my non-Black junior counterparts, despite the fact that some of them often came to me for help with work tasks. And when I told her this, her response was, "Great." It cost me my dignity as I was shouted at, brought to tears, spoken to with contempt, like this, with head nods and all. And as the sense of self that I had fought hard to rebuild was being worn down again over time, I told her that it's difficult for me to perform well when I feel like I'm on thin ice. To which she responded, "You are on thin ice." And as she gradually and persistently undermined my sanity by claiming she asked me to do things she didn't, or denying I had completed tasks that I had, I was faced with the reality of the difficult decision I would have to make. Would I sacrifice all the effort I made to move my life forward? Or would I put up with her covert abuse and compromise my principles and my well-being to get ahead? And I think these are the questions that many of us Black women professionals find ourselves faced with as we are systematically held back in our careers by institutions that set us up for failure without redress. Unfortunately, since I left the company, my family and I have been subject to cyber attacks, covert harassment, and surveillance. But this is what can happen when you dare to speak truth to power. But I don't share that to discourage you from speaking up in the face of injustice, but to prepare you, to remind you that we are up against systems of oppression that are actively resisting transformation, even by the sincerest of us. But that doesn't mean we should give up. Indeed, we cannot afford to give up. Not when research reveals that Black women have the highest rates of allostatic load, which is the wear and tear that stress has on the body. Motunrayo shared very helpfully some more of the research around this. In other words, we go through so much as Black women that it has this adverse impact on our bodies. And I was recently thinking about how we often hear about these awful stories of gunmen targeting Black people in churches and supermarkets in the US, but that's not the only way racism kills. Racial trauma in any of its forms takes its toll, and eventually it has an adverse impact on our health. We cannot afford to ignore this. We cannot afford to stay silent. So I invite you all today, as you listen to these powerful Black women's stories and learn about their work, to think about how you will take care of yourselves as Black women, and how you will take care of your sisters who are Black women. And if you are allies, how you will look after your friends who are Black women. And so here at Bounce Black, the work that I do, I'm very committed to walking alongside you in your healing process, as well as empowering you to overcome personal and structural obstacles. I'm also working together with allies to bring you webinars, articles, and events to use employment law to help you know your rights and advocate for yourselves. Shout out to Becky Collins of Cole Khan. She's in the building. Cole Khan Solicitors. Crucially, we'll be working with organizations as well to ensure that they're cultivating environments that help rather than harm you. So if you want to see change in your workplace or in your university, and you have a relationship with a Black employee resource group who can help you get leadership buy-in to get this transformation happening, please get in touch. Above all, please just join the community and stay connected. We've heard so many stories tonight that we can all relate to, but we wouldn't know we relate unless someone spoke. And so we need to stay connected and share with one another and foster the sisterhood and community that we need, not just to survive, but also to thrive. And I know we're super over time here, so I'm going to stop because I can keep going. But thank you all for coming tonight.